Recording in progress.
Hey, Sean. It's your parents. Can you hear me?
There's a bit of an echo on your line, Todd.
Hey guys.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Todd, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Quick question for Owen. How do I say your last name properly?
How do you think you say it?
What's that?
How do you think you say it? Oh, I won't put you through that. Don't worry.
Catchfez? Oh man.
Kafis.
Say it again for me.
Kafis.
Kafis. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot easier than it looked.
Fair enough. Hi, Ben, Michael.
Hi.
See you all.
So somehow we actually do have some people here in Auburn today.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
If, to address the public comment piece, I want to make sure that the people in the room, if they, hopefully we'll have plenty of time, but we may have to cut the Zoom folks a little bit short to make sure that the in-person people are also able to participate.
Will do.
Thanks. But hopefully we have plenty. Can you let me know when we're getting close to
Will do.
Are we visible to the public at this point?
Yes, you are.
Hello, everybody.
Ben? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Just doing a sweep here, make sure we don't have any board members in the attendee side.
I saw that Gordon had said he's will be here as well. Just another 10 minutes or so until he can be on the computer. Hi, John.
Pastor Anderson also is trying to connect in. So maybe to be in touch with him directly so you can find the link.
And Nate has let me know that he's not going to be able to make it today. He has his newborn with him. Maybe as soon as we get Pastor Anderson on, we can get started.
Okay, Pastor Anderson should be on shortly.
And I don't know if you saw Touch, I think Christopher as well is struggling to get in.
I see Christopher. There's him. So Simha, Pastor Anderson is having some difficulties getting on. We're working through to make sure we get him on. Do you want to go ahead and proceed with the meeting?
Yes, please. I think we are almost 10 minutes over, so. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
We can go ahead
Sean
and
and you.
we can go ahead and get started somehow.
Okay, we're public now. Great. So welcome everyone. I'm now calling this regular meeting of the KCRHA Implementation Board to order. Let's start by grounding our work in our theory of change, which is that if we create a homeless response system that centers people with lived experience, then we will be able to focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequities in order to end homelessness for all. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting, as all of our meetings will be going forward. So there's a physical location as well as virtual access. And I want to thank Mayor Nancy Bacchus and the City of Auburn for letting us borrow their chambers again today. Taj, would you please take roll call?
Absolutely. Carrie Anderson, which we know will be on soon. Paula Carvalho.
Here.
John Shumanak. Ben Moritz.
Here.
Juanita Spotted Elk. Gordon McHenry Jr., which I believe he's joining us a little bit later. Damian Patnod.
Here.
Michael Ramos.
Here.
Simha Reddy.
Here.
Sarah Rankin. Okay. Christopher Ross. And Nate Caminos is out.
Here.
Oh,
Sorry.
you're here. Great, thank you.
It's John Shelmanak. I think I was on accidentally on mute, but I am here.
Okay, thank you.
And I see Pastor Anderson is in the other room.
Great, we'll bring him over. Wonderful. He should be over now.
Okay. Let's count him present as well. Welcome,
Perfect.
Pastor Anderson.
And that is it.
Be in the right room. then. Thank you.
Glad to have you. So we do have quorum and we'll be able to proceed. And Gordon McHenry is in the other room as well, if you can bring him in now. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that King County is located on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples. We honor this land and its people, past and present, and we are committed to directing funding and resources to organizations led by and in support of Native and Indigenous people. So at every meeting, we reserve time for public comment. At our last meeting, we had more people wishing to comment than we had time to accommodate. Today, we're going to extend our public comment to 45 minutes to give the public an opportunity to speak. We're doing so in particular because this is a time period in which we are accepting a lot of feedback around the 5-year plan and really do want to hear as much as possible from the public. If you'd like to provide comments, go ahead and please add your name and the city you're from to the chat now, and Todd will call on you in order after the consent agenda. So thank you to everybody who's already started signing up. I appreciate that. Just a brief overview of our agenda for today. We'll do go through our consent agenda. We'll take public comment for up to 45 minutes. I'll take about 15 minutes to do a board chair update, primarily around housekeeping issues focused on the board. And then our CEO, Mark Dones, will provide a CEO update. He'll be speaking, or they will, I apologize. They'll be speaking to both some of the feedback they've been getting in the 5-year plan, as well as the RHA's approach to encampments. And then we will have a presentation from Owen Kefes on unsheltered homelessness. So let's get started. So on our consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from our January 2023 IB meeting. And I'll ask if there is a motion to approve.
So moved, Gordon McHenry.
Thank you, Gordon. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Paula. All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The minutes are approved. Thank you. So we will now lead into public comments. We have 45 minutes for that public comment. And if you wish to comment and you haven't already added your name and city to the chat box or signed up in person down in Auburn, please do so now. Each person will have 2 minutes to comment, and we ask that the comments be related to today's agenda. We're going to go and start with the people on Zoom, Then we'll make sure to move to the people in the room, if any in Auburn. Public comment is now open. Please be respectful of time. We're sticking to 2 minutes per person. Taj, please call on people for public comment.
Sure. The first person that we have for public comment is Bill Curlin Hackett from the Interfaith Task Force on Homelessness in Auburn. Bill, you have the floor.
Greetings, everybody. Thanks for your service on this board. First, the 5-year plan is a good broad overview. I concur the immediate needs on the streets require emergency action. And at the same time, I would say goal 7, that the region acts as one, must also be immediate. The public must see and hear that every city is in. Second, the plan addresses half of the circle of homelessness that is about funding and actions. The other half of the circle of homelessness is about living on streets and off streets and what jurisdictions do enforcing laws. We have 39 different law responses to those in homelessness. Many responses too often criminalize and stigmatize. Court law, such as the Ninth Circuit's Martin versus Boise, no sweeps without offering shelter, is regularly violated, especially regarding vehicle residents. Too much regional authority money is going into harm alleviation because of various laws enforced differently. Cities need to align law response. Third, the sub-regional plans will bring the actions on the ground that address what we all want, that is pathways to stability. Arguments over tiny homes and other remedies need to cease. All options, including tiny homes, must stay on the table. Put funds into that micro modular shelter chart on page 38 of the 5-year plan. Let's make all responses sub-regionally appropriate and encourage sub-regional autonomy and not dictate from above. Fourth, the faith community is as yet mostly on the outside. Last year, RHA leadership suggested the ITFH could be a partner to engage faith.
Excuse me, Bill, I'm sorry, but you're at time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
One second. Next person that we have for public comment is Dawn McKenzie. Dawn is a Seattle resident. Dawn, you have the floor.
Thank you. Dawn McKenzie, resident of Seattle, and parent of 2 students attending school less than 200 feet from the Ship Canal Bridge homeless camp, a hotbed of drugs, stolen property, and violence, where someone was shot to death last month. You are failing at your job, you are failing me, my family, our neighbors, and you are failing the very people you are charged with helping. I know that under the current interlocal agreement, you are not accountable to local communities, taxpayers, or even elected officials. And this is reflected in the disregard and even contempt for our concerns about kids being exposed to risks that include used needles, being chased out of their after-school care center, that did happen, and now apparently stray bullets. Fine. But you are accountable to the homeless people living in these camps. And by failing to move them into more stable housing, you increase the risk to them as well as the rest of us. Last month's murder is a tragic illustration of your failure. The city of Seattle has shown that it is possible to get people out of camps and into proper shelter. I understand your agency has already received $50 million for right-of-way camps alone. It's time to stop talking and planning and start doing. Otherwise, why will anyone support further spending on homelessness when you can't do anything useful with the money you've already received? Making things better for homeless people and better for residents shouldn't be an either-or situation. Your inaction is making it into one. And when you force voters into a choice between the safety of their children and just about anything else, you are not going to like what they choose. My red line was passed a long time ago.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you're at time. Thank you so much.
I'm at 125.
I have 2 minutes over here. Thank you. The next attendee that we have up for public comment is Andrew Constantino. 1 second. Andrew, you have the floor. Andrew, if you there, you have the floor.
Oh, hello. My name is Andrew Constantino. I'm housed now, but spent years struggling with addiction and homelessness, camping all over Seattle. Staying at a tiny house village helped me get stable and move forward with my life. Currently, I'm an outreach worker, visiting and supporting folks still outside. Often they face many of the same challenges I did. The resource most requested from those I outreach is a tiny house. It feels impossible to access these most days. Usually there's one opening at most. The village openings are filled within minutes of being reported available. There simply aren't enough spaces that people are allowed to be and want to be in. The tiny house villages are both. We cannot allow folks to languish on the streets while we wait for years for perfect solutions that often never arrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. The next person that we have up for public comment is Jackie Siska. Jackie, you have the floor.
Okay. I'm speaking today as a resident of the Wallingford neighborhood and a parent of children who attend the John Stanford International Elementary School, which is located 1 block from the Pasadena encampment. The Pasadena encampment is washed out right of way directly under I-5 just north of the Montlake Canal. We've been watching the ongoing tragedy here unfold for years. There has been fires, murders, drug dealing, and worse, all within a stone's throw of our community school. Several houses have been burned down on the streets due to squatters. A visit in November by a local nonprofit showed only 6 people actively living within the encampment. Now, WashDOT has quoted 25 to 30 people. The encampment has grown significantly during the last few months, and there's clearly a large amount of illegal dumping, all while KCRHA has said this encampment is next on the priority list. It's likely that much of the criminal activity at the site is caused by people who don't live here, but just visit for nefarious purposes. Following many conversations with city council representatives, the mayor's office, SPD, and WashDOT, we know that RHA is responsible for closing the encampment using the funds provided by the state. Funds which are currently available and not being used. $50 million earmarked currently, and now you're asking for another $13 billion in total for your new 5-year plan. We heard from WashDOT and RHA that you're indeed working on this site, but we don't have any timelines, and we're concerned that the situation will get worse for all involved. We're compassionate people, focused on education and safety of our children. We have explained to our kids people living under the highway near the school are there through no fault of their own, and that our local government is able to meet their needs. We hope that the RHA will rise to this challenge and take action immediately. Without immediate and swift action, the RHA and WashDOT are allowing the community to be needlessly exposed to more danger. We cannot allow this to continue. RHA has not done the job they were paid to do. As a taxpayer, community member, and parent, I cannot support the new 5-year plan, knowing that the work is not being done and all parts of the community are suffering.
Jackie, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you're at time. Thank you
Good,
so
I'm
much.
done. Good.
The next public comment that we have is from Jessica Olivas from Protect 17. Jessica, you have the floor.
Hi there. Sorry, there was a delay. Greetings, Implementation Board. My name is Jessica Olivas, and I'm the organizing director at Protect 17. the union that proudly represents the employees at the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. Last year, the employees at KCRHA came together to form their union, and they were united and successful in doing so. And over the past 6 months have been negotiating their first contract, which is a binding agreement between Protect 17 members and the KCRHA. And it's a chance at working together and ensuring that those doing the work in the field are treated with dignity and respect as they combat one of our community's most impactful issues, which is how to eradicate homelessness. We believe that one of the best ways to ensure lasting stabilization and real solutions to this issue is to invest in the employees leading the effort every day. And we are in full support of the 5-year strategic plan. We support the work and the mission of the KCRHA in our community, and we want to partner with RHA on how to best honor and elevate the work of our members, many of whom we all know have lived experience. By investing in those leading the programs of the RHA, we can provide stability, good wages and benefits, a safe working environment in the field, and the ability to have a protected voice on the job. Stability for the employees at RHA means that there is more retention of those with institutional knowledge, with lived experience, and that means more stability in the system, a crucial component to the success of RHA's mission and values. And Protect 17 fully supports the adoption and implementation of the 5-year plan as an investment in the staff that are serving our unhoused neighbors. And we urge the community, local government, and stakeholders in joining us in supporting, listening to, and giving a fair contract to those that have dedicated their lives to eradicating homelessness in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. The next person that we have up for public comment is Ashley Capel. Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Taj. My name is Ashley Capel. Thank you for your time today. I am a Seattle resident, also a mother to a 6-year-old who attends John Stanford. I'm here to comment on the 5-year plan and the associated funding that's being requested. And I do not support the plan, given KCRHA has not proven your competency and ability to actually fulfill the plans and mission that you've agreed to. So in looking at the MOA, as well as the contract that was signed last year, I see that the authority committed to the principles of nobody should live unsheltered, prompt action, prompt work should be taken to move people inside. The contract also agreed that we should work on short-term goal of transitioning people from specific prioritized state rights of way into housing by promptly identifying shelter. These things have clearly not been done for the priority site right next to John Stanford International School. And per my peer parents who have spoken today, it's not just an issue for the unsheltered, which is a huge priority. We are a compassionate community who wants these people to be taken care of and helped, which is your job. And in you not doing your job and ensuring the effective management of your organization and what you've been tasked and I will say contracted to do, you are also putting at risk the community and our students and our children. And so with that, I want to remind you a couple of things, that their safety is your responsibility as well. And that if you don't comply, that this contract can be removed and the funding as well. So if we want KCRHA to be successful, which we all do, it is possible that we can start advocating that the state not contract and not fund KCRHA to continue to do this, because you have not proven your ability to successfully do this. So I ask you, please, please, I beg you, before we're on the news, because one of our children is hurt because this team did not take action in ensuring the effective management of an organization who has been tasked with the safety of these unsheltered individuals and the safety of our children as a result. So thank you for your time, and I beg you, please help us solve this problem.
Thank you, Ashley. The next person that we have up for public comment is Joe Silver. Joe, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Joe Silver, and I'm a Seattle resident in Wallingford. I have 2 children at John Stanford Elementary School, as you heard from a couple of the other parents. In light of the recent fatal shooting outside the school associated with the I-5 Pasadena encampment, I implore this commission to use all its resources to clear out the camp immediately. It's dangerous, and it's way too close to an elementary school to exist in a city like Seattle. I'm well aware there's limited resources. There's many encampments across the county that you're working on, but enough is enough. There's always been a security risk here. There have been other gun incidents. There's been fires, and now there's been a fatal shooting. What are we waiting for? It's time to take action so nothing harms our children in our elementary school community. I'm a homeowner, I'm a taxpayer, and I'm not going to sit here and wait while a web of entities point me in all sorts of different directions and tell me we're working on a plan. Prioritize the most dangerous situations to prevent anything else from happening near our children. This community owes the families of John Stanford a specific plan and update on what you will do to remove the encampment so we can focus on our kids' education and not their security. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. The next person that we have up for public comment is Eli Hosher. Eli, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Eli Hosher, and I'm a father of a 4th grade student that attends John Stanford International School, located directly across from the encampment that we've all been hearing about. For the past year, I've witnessed this encampment double and now triple in size, and now it's taking over multiple homes all up and down the block where violent crimes, abandoned cars, open drug use, and needles on the playground, and homes are being burnt to the ground. And this is all being allowed to occur for whatever reason. We're now on our 3rd shooting death that's occurred at that site since September. And the latest crime report shows that Seattle is at a 15-year high with 739 shootings in 2022. I also demand immediate action to remove this dangerous and illegal camp before anything else happens. What is it would draw the line for you until you're going to make some sort of action? I toured the site a day after the shooting last week, and I witnessed with my own eyes the pool of blood where someone had died from a gunshot wound and the devastating conditions that these people are living in. I'm not here to discuss what to do to help provide anything for the homeless, because that's your job. I'm here to show my outrage at what is going on, and anybody that is in a position of authority that isn't making the safety of the children their top priority is a coward. You're entirely responsible for everything that's happening here and not removing this camp. You have funds that are available, and yet the situation is getting worse every day. I've been in touch with the police, messages to all different forms of government, the mayor, WashDOT, Mark Dones, and I just keep getting passed around and nobody is taking accountability. And I can understand that you guys are the ones in the last line to be able to actually affect change. Please do something immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli. The next person we have up for public comment is Lisa Nitz. Lisa, you have the floor.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the KCRHA 5-year plan. I'm Lisa Nitza with Nitza Kagan, an integrated development and management company that builds attainable housing on transit-oriented corridors. Tiny homes or micro-modular shelters are used for emergency housing. They represent a bridge between congregate and permanent housing. And tiny home villages offer both emergency housing and community. and those in the field working with the unsheltered population often cite community and removal from isolation with assistance in getting back on their feet through service providers as essential in getting people off streets and into new lives. We have developments near tiny home villages, and we found this to be true. There needs to be money in the budget to increase the number of villages and build homes and operate them. The second point I wanted to make is that the plan calls for an integrated service environment, which does not mean removing boots on the ground in neighborhoods to replace them with centralized command and control systems. We need both. Centralized command and control is terrific, but we need help in neighborhoods. And Partnership for Zero's Housing Command Center approach has not resulted in information on who to call about what situations in neighborhoods. Its system advocates and peer navigation approach has not resulted in boots on the ground in neighborhoods, nor information about people to call, nor results when that occurs. This budget needs to include education, access, and response so communities can be part of the solution and can reach out to try to help the currently homeless. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. The next public comment that we have is from Richard Frith. My apologies if I didn't say your last name correctly. One second. Okay, it seems that Richard is not accepting the panelists' invitation, so we're going to go to the next person. The next person that I have up for public comment would be Jessica Victoria. Jessica, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. I am calling in today to also discuss the Pasadena encampment. I live in an apartment building adjacent to this encampment where I am also the resident manager. I am aware that the state has given the RHA the responsibility for helping the people in the encampment find safe shelter. And I am asking that you do so as quickly as possible and that you give the community a clear and transparent timeline. So far, all we are seeing is the number of tents increasing. A new one appeared over the weekend. Myself and many of the residents of this building are very alarmed at the safety and sanitation issues regarding this. We know that there was a shooting last week and we are terrified. We get people going through our dumpsters every day, which is both a nuisance to our maintenance team, but also something that makes us afraid because we know these people are armed. I am aware that many RHA outreach workers are afraid to go into the encampment, which is totally understandable. But this is not a reason to delay the resolution. It is a reason to expedite it. I am not asking for a sweep. I want the people there to be housed, but for their safety and mine, I want it to be done quickly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jessica. All right, we're going to try Richard Frith again for public comment. Okay, it seems Richard is not there, so we're going to go ahead and go to the next person. The next person I have for public comment is Shisu Nair from Seattle. Shisu, you have the floor.
Sorry, I was on mute. Within your 5-year plan, you have carved out and prioritized the youth, young adults, and families within the unsheltered population. You understand that these subsets of our populations are the most vulnerable and need to be protected ahead of others. I ask you to value the safety of all children, not just those within the unsheltered population, by prioritizing and accelerating the resolution of encampments located close to schools. The encampment near my son's elementary school is close enough that I can see it from the school grounds. As others have noted, there have been 2 shooting deaths in this encampment in the last 3 months alone. Used needles and human feces regularly appear on our playgrounds where curious children play each day. This encampment of roughly 30 unsheltered individuals is endangering the lives of over 300 school children. Despite countless calls, emails, and messages to the many agencies involved, we have been told that legally nothing can be done until housing becomes available. When is that going to happen? King County was allocated close to $50 million by the Rights of Way Safety Initiative and signed the MOU over 6 months ago. The last encampment resolved was Northgate in October. With this much funding and time, how have we not made any progress on this? What are we waiting for? In cases where encampments endanger the safety of children, we should be prioritizing pace over perfection and resolving encampments speedily, even if it means temporarily lowering the quality of housing offered. I cannot support a 5-year plan until I see more action being taken year 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Shisu. The next person that we have up for public comment is Ann Harry Panito from Seattle Capitol Hill. Ann, you have the floor when you're ready.
I am I'm a member of the CAC for True Hope, which is on 17th and Yesler, right across the Langston Hughes Center. We have 33 homes and 50 people, including 19 children, of which, there are like 6 under the age of 1 year old. We have residents who have serious mental health issues. We also have moms who are still using, and their newborns need to be detoxed, and all of these services are lined up for them when they live in a tiny home. Otherwise, the outcomes for the unborn with an addicted mom would be very, very grim. I think we are nationally recognized as a very successful model to end homelessness or triage those who have come to the tiny homes. We can figure out what they need in terms of social services, and they're much more successful once they transition to permanent housing. And there are 50% of our residents that go into permanent housing. It's a stability immediate to all the villagers, and the churches and communities are willing to host tiny home villages. We have 80 built homes, but we have 0 money in the 5-year plan for tiny home villages. And we would respectfully request that we are funded sufficiently so we can continue to use this model, which has worked and is great. And the kids are happy and safer, and it would be devastating if we had no additional tiny home villages in the county. So I do not support the plan as it is written because it has $0 for tiny home operations and setup, and $53 million for RV parking. It just seems like an inequitable funding of options. So I plead with the committee to look at other alternatives that are working in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. The next person we have up for public comment is Melinda Nichols, who is joining through Josh Castle. Melinda, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Melinda was actually trying to get on through her phone and wasn't able to testify today, but I would like to testify anyway, if that's okay.
Absolutely, go for it.
Thanks for pulling me on. I appreciate that. So I'm Josh Castle. I'm a resident of Tukwila, and I'm the Community Engagement Director with Lehigh. I think it was a surprise to many, including many in this meeting, that the 5-year plan, as Ann mentioned before, budgets $0 for tiny house villages. The reason why this was a shock to so many is because the villages have proven to be a very highly effective stepping stone from homelessness to permanent housing, with our case managers working with residents in the villages to access their IDs, their documentation, employment, healthcare, and getting everything that they need to get housing ready and get into permanent housing. It's hard to do that. It's hard to work with residents or work with folks living outside when they're in their tent and they're being swept and they're forced to move from location to location. When we have on-site case management able to help clients inside the tiny house villages, and they can stay put while they recover from trauma and get into these programs and then access permanent housing. So this is why nearly 50% of our clients exiting villages transitioned to permanent housing last year, which has been consistent year after year. This is a much higher rate of exit to permanent housing than all shelter programs. Outreach workers report to us that people living outside choose tiny houses more than any other form of shelter because they provide privacy, dignity, safety, community, heat, and a locking door to secure their possessions. There are currently over 80 quality built tiny houses sitting at the Hope Factory in Soto that you guys should visit sometime. Many were also built across the region, so there's dozens more in church parking lots, driveways, and school campuses. There are several willing properties available right now on church, private, and government land for tiny house villages in Seattle, Tukwila, SeaTac, and other communities across King County. What is missing, as evident from the 5-year plan, is the willingness of KCRHA to fund them. So I ask the implementation board, and I ask the staff of the KCRHA and everyone listening today to please help us with getting these funded so we can get these tiny houses get them in these sites and help people get from homelessness to permanent housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. The next person that we have up for public comment is going to be Harold Crichton. Harold, you have the floor when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that. My name is Harold Crichton. I'm with CBSR, Church by the Side of the Road. And my request today is that my church is interested in providing land that we own for tiny homes. I'm working with Josh Castle, my church is, and we're trying to get provisions, finances to be able to make this happen. We work very closely in the community and in a lot of areas. We have very close ties with the city leaders, and we're very much interested in sharing our land, putting our land to good use for the homelessness. We have feeding programs. We have also vans that come out that provide medical and dental. And we have a lot of programs going on. We have AA meetings provided on our property. And so it would be a shame that we wouldn't provide tiny homes or permanent homes for the community and the city, state at large. As you know, we have all this homelessness going on, encampments on the side of the freeway, and we have property in a good spot that would be very conducive for the needs of the homeless. That's what I would like to share at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. The next person that we have for public comment is Margaret Holt. Margaret, you have the floor when you're ready. Margaret, are you there?
Okay, I'm sorry. I was talking. It started. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you
Okay.
now.
Great. Hello, I'm Margaret Holt. I'm a King County resident who cares about homelessness and how we as a community respond to the unhoused as individuals with unique circumstances and needs. Something that I am, as a citizen, currently backing up with my taxes. I'm also the concerned mother of a student at John Stanford Public Elementary School, 1 block from the Pasadena encampment, who needs my children, our families, and the staff of our school to be safe, and who doesn't think these things need to be mutually exclusive. My school community and I want a clear plan and a timeline to address the situation, which has become a safety emergency at this point for both the people within the encampment and those of us nearby. As we have reviewed the documentation, the contracts, and the facts on the ground, we've come to the conclusion that this is not a funding issue, but a management issue, that the Pasadena encampment is less of a public housing problem than a public safety issue. We have learned about the Dearborn encampment and how CoLead, Just Care, and Reach have come together to relocate residents into housing. And we were astonished that when we looked at the timeline, it was, roughly a 6-week effort. I am sure that, there's much work leading up to this, but they all came together and got it done. And similarly with the Northgate encampment, we've been told one of the reasons, the case of the Pasadena encampment, that we are waiting for a building to be built. We cannot understand why this is, and nor do we accept this. The MOU transitioning people out of the state right of way in King County, signed by the RHA, Deputy Chief Executive Officer, states that the top 2 goals and objectives are as promptly identifying shelter and referring unsheltered people to identified emergency and other housing and services. There are other ways to house people than waiting for a building to be built. People are dying and being endangered while KCRHA waits. As parents, as PTA members, as a school community, we are doing our job in seeking to keep our children safe. We need this body to do its job and keep the unhoused residents at the Pasadena encampment safe. Our families, our community cannot support the 5-year plan without demonstrated efficacy that the KCRHA can and will resolve the situation as it is legally contracted to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Simha, we actually are at 2:51, and I do have 2 people here at Auburn at our physical location that wants to give public comment.
How many people do we have left on our electronic list? Or
We have 2 people left, actually 3.
Okay, that gives us, I think, just about enough time. Let's see if we can do that for our speakers. Yeah, let's go ahead and move
Sure.
forward.
The first person that I have for public comment is Emily Houston, and she is from Seattle.
I'm here today as a parent of a kindergartner at John Stanford Elementary School, but also as a native Seattleite concerned with the overall trajectory throughout our city as it pertains to homelessness and safety. You've heard from other parents regarding the dangerous encampment in a block from John Stanford Elementary School. Per service providers that visit the site on a regular basis, this encampment is, and I quote, "a revolving door for buying and selling dope." Let's not kid ourselves or sugarcoat what's going on here. If we do not accurately diagnose the problem, we will not solve it. I understand that it is the philosophy of the authority to wait until people are ready and meet people where they're at. While we wait, People are slowly dying under a bridge, and our children, families, and school staff are being subjected to this public safety hazard. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good here. If the authority cannot resolve this one encampment with any sense of urgency, given $50 million, how do you expect the public to support you asking for $13 billion? If you want support for your 5-year plan, you will have to have a much better track record than what you currently do. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. The next person that we have up for public comment is Bill Caldwell from Speak Out Seattle.
Hello.
Bill, you have the floor.
My name is Bill Caldwell. I'm a resident of Seattle. I'm come today to express some disappointment with the King County Regional Homeless Authority's published 5-year plan. Seattle's widely known 10-year plan to end homelessness began in 2005 and ended in 2015. Despite more than $1 billion spent, that housing first approach was a failure. The failure shown by the next one-night count, which was done in 2016, January, which showed 10,688 homeless people, which was a 300% increase from where we started in 2005. Subsequently, Seattle declared a state of emergency on homelessness in November of 2015 and spent more than $100 million each year. Yet our homeless numbers kept growing. Why? We all need to face the elephant in the room. And it's not me, even though I'm fat. Drugs and drug addiction. While many will say addressing drug addiction is outside the scope and authority of the KCRHA, I challenge that notion. We need to address the root causes of homelessness if we are ever to succeed in resolving it. We are here because Seattle's approach failed. Why repeat it? The KCRHA work group does well in mentioning the need to support recovery housing. It's alluded to on page 33 of the proposed plan. Yet, using international data showing only 21% of homeless persons have drug addictions is not the reality of Seattle or King County. Nor does the 5-year plan include appropriate focus on drug addiction. Many don't realize that when Seattle spent billions on our failed 10-year plan to end homelessness, much money was diverted away from alcohol and drug treatment programs. Inexcusably, 4 of the most effective recovery programs in Seattle were closed due to lack of support. The housing first approach is an expensive Cadillac approach that may work in some areas of the country which don't have out of control rates of drug addiction. I encourage the KCRHA to revise the 5-year plan to prioritize ways to focus resources to support addiction recovery model to reduce homelessness. We need to avoid the disastrous pitfalls of the so-called harm reduction model, which we have had in our city, and we've seen it lead to skyrocketing rates of death from overdose, unprecedented rates of crime, and a vast increase in homelessness in our region. Spending $12 billion in tax dollars over 5 years without addressing the most significant root cause will just repeat what we have already done. Please devote more time, attention, and monetary resources to pursuing recovery-based transitional housing services. Get people healthy, back on their feet. Let's help them reclaim their dignity and positive place in our community. Recovery saves lives. Recovery is worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Simha, that concludes our physical location public comment. We do have time for one more virtual, if you are okay with that.
Yes, please. I think you said we have a total of 3 virtual still?
2.
2. Let's just go and do both.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
The next person that we have for public comment is Ty Whitfield. Ty, when you're ready, you have the floor.
Okay, hello. Hear me?
We hear you.
My phone is not happening. Hi, I apologize. My name is Ty Whitfield, community advocate for the city of Kent, a voice for over about 160 homeless, and work with over 18 nonprofits. We all know, I'm not even going to go into the story of the reason why we know that we need to have emergency housing, such as tiny villages, to be part of this plan. We thought when they made this plan that we were all going to work together, have a variety of different housing options so that we can work together.
Ty, are you still there? Ty?
Yes.
Ty, I
Hello?
believe you're having some connectivity issues. You keep breaking up. Okay, Ty, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to bring you back as an attendee, and we're gonna go to the next person due to time.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, the last public comment that we have is going to be Deacon London Knight. Deacon Knight, you have the floor when you're ready. Deacon Knight, you're muted if you can hear us.
How about right now?
Perfect.
I apologize for this. I'm the new kid on the block here, pretty much. I'm a deacon at church by the side of the road last 8-9 years, and I'm on the building committee. And we've been tasked with a lot of things at CBSR for the community. We've been involved for a long time. So instead of going through all of that, we know that we've for 80 years, we've been at this community, we've been at this church, we've been a beacon when it comes to the things we've been doing to serve the people, to be able to serve the needs of the community. And one thing we've been able to do very quickly is the Hot Lunch program we do, CBSR every Tuesday. We got clothing and socks and hygiene kits and typical things that a lot of other churches and other peoples do. We have Walk the Block. That's been a ministry where we've been serving to and seeing some of these very same people that's been in some of our tent cities that we've taken on there at the property several times. And so we know the responsibility, we know the challenges. We just have this big, huge piece of property. And we've been faithful stewards of what would be the best use of this property. And I think now with the help of the correct funding, that was the issue before, now it's just wide open. So I'm waiting for the dust to settle for people with cooler heads and calmer hearts to be able to see the bigger picture and just go with what we know we could provide for the community. That's it. Thank you very much for your time. Short and sweet.
Thank you, Deacon. Okay, Simha, that concludes public comment.
Thank you for coordinating that. And to the close to 20 members of the public who provided public comment, really grateful to you. It can be difficult to share your fears, worries, and concerns in a public setting. And so thank you for that. We are going to move on to the next portions of our agenda. I'm going to give a few just board member updates, and then we'll move on to the CEO update, and we'll have a chance to talk about encampments there as well. For my board members, some basic housekeeping things. Number one, by now you should have received information on connecting again to your KCRHA email. I really strongly encourage you to use that. As a public agency, it's important that all our communications are easily obtained. Number two, it should be on your calendar already, but April 14th is our board member retreat. I think this is an important place for us to reconnect and ensure that we're working well together as a board. Third, the System Planning Committee. For in a lot of ways, this is largely operated as a work group, but we should lean into this being a true committee, especially as we are focusing on the 5-year plan. The goal would be for it to meet more frequently as we are working on the plan, and to ideally be in a public setting so the public can participate and at least hear our discussions. So I'm asking for as much participation from this board as possible. Please reach out to Sean if you haven't already, for anyone who's interested, so we can find time that's most convenient for as many people as possible. So from the staff side, Sean Watkins will be the running point on that. So please respond to him. A couple other things for March, our March meeting. There's going to be 3 main issues discussed, or 3 things we need to get done then. One is about our bylaws, second, board officer elections, and third, our further discussion on the CEO review. With regards to the bylaws, if you have not yet had a chance to meet with Aaron Brian Thomas, who is working on receiving feedback from board members and performing a racial equity analysis, please make sure to do so. Second, if you are interested at all in being a board officer, it's allows you to sort of engage with the KCRHA on a closer level. Please reach out to myself, Damien, Paula. There are a total of 4 positions: secretary, treasurer, and 2 co-chairs positions. Happy to discuss anytime. And finally, in terms of our CEO review, just a brief update. We were able to hear a few reflections from Mark last time in executive session. In terms of process, there's an HR consultant already working with KCRHA on other human resource issues. And I've asked that they help garner staff feedback in an anonymous way for us. Also scheduled to meet with the governing committee chairs in 2-ish weeks to garner their feedback, as we've captured this feedback, and grateful to those board members who've already provided some to me as well. We'll meet again with Mark to review and discuss, we meaning the executive committee. And then we'll bring that after garnering feedback, after talking with Mark, we'll bring that to the full board in executive session next meeting in March on the 8th. And just a little bit of information on process. So again, big things. Make sure you're participating in the system planning committee if at all possible. Even if you can't make every session, some participation is better than none. Number 2, in March, we're going to be managing bylaws, officer elections, review. Any questions about any of that from our board members? Okay.
Can you share again who to send in questions about bylaws to? I didn't get the name.
Absolutely. It's actually, if you want to go and send it to Sean Watkins, he'll be able to help get it to the right person. Okay. Aaron Brian Thomas is helping with that, but she's working closely with Sean. Any other questions from the board? To the public, thank you for tolerating a little bit of that housekeeping work. We're going to move on now to an update from our CEO, Mark Dones. Mark, are you available?
I am. Thank you, Chair. I want to start. I have 2 main topics that I want to cover today. The first actually is about encampment resolutions. And I want to let the board know and let the public know that we are making progress on bringing folks inside. In our state right-of-way initiative, we actually have brought about 150 couples and families inside, and have ongoing engagement with about 250 people across 3 prioritized sites. I also want to be really clear that, like, you know, my team and I share many of the safety concerns that folks have lifted up today, and that RHA will continue to partner with public safety agencies to ensure that when there is a public safety concern, that law enforcement and other appropriate first responders are the folks who are engaged to manage those safety concerns. The active sites that are currently prioritized by KCRHA staff and partners all have significant safety dynamics, including the Pasadena encampment, which you heard about today from the public, which is one of our prioritized sites. To that end, and in recognition of some of what folks have talked about, I do want to let the board know that we have increased staffing at that site to every day, inclusive of weekends. There is ongoing engagement with the folks who live at that site, and we are in the process of attempting to do some enhanced safety planning that I hope to be able to speak to in more granularity by the end of the week as we prep to resolve that site. How KCRHA works in terms of our encampment engagement, which I believe the board knows, but I think it's good for the public to know, is that we have a list of operant sites that we are actively engaged in, and the prioritization of those sites is structured by a couple, well, actually more than a couple, defined characteristics. And so we move through that list at the speed of resource availability in a manner similar to the city, although we deploy different resources at times due to the variation in the shelter set-asides that the city operates and the broader shelter and housing system that KCRHA operates. We are also, through our Partnership for Zero work, where possible, blending resources between right-of-way, general system, and the partnership funds to try to move things as quickly as possible. To that end, about 143 folks, couples, families, individuals have moved inside, either to permanent housing or interim options through Partnership for Zero. 53 people are in fully permanent autonomous housing, and 160 have obtained their documents and photo identification, which is often the first critical step in terms of getting them on any housing pathway. To that end, we are also partnering with the state to try to accelerate that process. Frankly, hundreds of staff hours go into getting people their documents, and we are anxious to see if we can reduce that time so that we can accelerate our ability to get people into anything. And then we also have about 346 people who are engaged at priority sites through Partnership for Zero and are on a path into housing. I do also want to just lift up that the appropriate response at any time for any safety concern will be to reach out to law enforcement. And I really want to underscore that to make sure that if there are consistent concerns, that law enforcement is being engaged. Our work and our teams are going to be really focused on service deployment and on helping to connect people with those appropriate housing options as they become available. I also wanted to provide an update on the 5-year plan. So we've received a significant amount of feedback. I believe we have over 500 comments that are logged through the survey. And in addition, Alexis and her team, I'm going to give Alexis a chance to speak in just a moment, have been engaging with a lot of regional stakeholders to get their feedback. One of the things that is very clear, and the board heard in some of the comments today, is that there is a lot of concern about behavioral health. We recognize that concern, we agree with that concern, and our role is to partner around that concern. And so we hope to have some discussion with our colleagues at the county who provide oversight to that system about what we could do to more robustly partner and how that partnership might show up in a revised draft of the plan. And then we also continue to prioritize what goes first and to understand from community what their input is on how to stagger the implementation, as well as work with the policy team in-house to do our own assessments around feasibility and refine some of the cost modeling. There have been some questions about the different types of shelter options. I want to really clarify that we are not proposing to decommission any existing resources. We are in too dire a situation to turn anything off. The question becomes, how do we make modifications to some of those things so that they are appropriately desirable to folks who are currently being forced to live outside and can be used at the capacity that they need to be used at. I also just want to remind folks that the methodology has two key components: the commerce quantitative methodology and then the local qualitative methodology. And so when we talk about, sort of what the system needs and the sort of right sizing of the system, much of the detail around the what's is derived from that qualitative data, right? So it's about what people who are experiencing homelessness have said, would be ideal for them to take the next step in their lives. I also want to just lift up that how that interviewing was done was not in a, binary, do you prefer this or this, but more in the vein of what would be the most supportive? What is the thing that's going to be the most helpful? How, what services, what was the physical setting, right? And so some of the things that I think folks are lifting up in terms of not seeing certain things or thinking they would hear more about some things is in direct reaction to the absence of that information coming through when we asked folks those open-ended, more blue sky style questions. Finally, what I want to say before I pass it off to Alexis, who's going to talk a little bit about the plan for staffing the subcommittee that Chair Reddy mentioned, is that we want to be clear that much of how we are approaching the fiscal impact of the plan is not to immediately shift the burden of that funding onto our current funders or onto taxpayers in the form of a levy. I think that the one of the more significant technical revisions that the board will see is a much fuller expansion on the amount of federal money that is already available and is currently being left on the table. Predominantly in CMS Medicaid reimbursable forms, and how modernization of the system infrastructure and some significant changes to how we think about programs and billing might give us, frankly, a significant boost with regard to revenue just to fund services. There are some great in-state examples of where that's happening, particularly Spokane, which does a excellent job in terms of FCS, or foundational community supports billing. But there are other examples too across the nation, and we are partnering with some folks to explore those and again, make those technical revisions to the plan. And then on the subcommittee staffing, I'll pass it off to Alexis, who I believe has a brief presentation, which is not included in your packets. Apologies, but will be posted afterwards for the public and emailed to all of you shortly. Alexis?
Thank you, Mark. Sorry, I just wanted to take a moment before we transition to a different staff member. Can we just take questions from the board in case there are any based on your CO update?
Of course.
Thank you. Any questions from our board members?
Sorry, I'll jump in. I'm looking.
Okay.
Somebody else going? I'm trying to find that my thing has disappeared with the raised hand.
I see Ben and then I see John.
Okay, I'll just be quick. I just wanted to really celebrate, Mark, some of the numbers that you just talked about, particularly with the Partnership for Zero downtown. I think the last board meeting, we were at like 20 or 30 people that have been moved. And that, and you promised us that we would see a acceleration as the systems got in place. And it's just so great to hear that is now happening. You mentioned that we're doing some creative things around leveraging different resources there to help people as quickly as possible. And that's absolutely what I think we should be doing. And I just wanted to just say congratulations to you and the rest of the staff, because I know that every single person who's being helped through Partnership for Zero has unique and individual challenges and requires a lot of bureaucratic work, but also a lot of love to move them through. And it's just great to see that we're accelerating that. And I very much look forward to what's to come there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I will say that on behalf of the team, it is a lot of work, and it is it'll be great to be able to take some of that praise back to them. I know it will mean a lot.
John, I saw you take yourself off mute.
Yeah, first I just really sort of a technical housekeeping thing. The timing was sort of all over the board today on public speaking. So if we can come up with when do you time the 2 minutes, that would be great. I was timing here, some were over, some were under, and I really appreciate it, stopped before even using all of their 2 minutes. And so I appreciate that from the public. But we also heard a lot of concern coming today from the public on a very specific issue, and it's something that we're tasked with doing. So, Mark, when are we going to get a better sense of how quickly we can use and place people into some form of emergency shelter from the WashDOT sites?
Thank you, Board Member Chomelack. A couple things. The proviso language in the bill that authorizes that project is extremely specific, and says that folks need to be prioritized for a permanent housing solution, and that without access to a permanent housing solution or something similar, that it really does limit the engagement that the team can take. And so what we have done at the authority is stand up so far 80 units of emergency housing. That is what we've used to drive the encampment resolutions to date. We have also supported through an operating maintenance and services agreement the opening of a facility, like a permanent supportive housing facility, set to be operated by the Low Income Housing Institute, or LEHI. My understanding is that due to factors that I am not fully aware of, the opening of that building, which I believe some of the members of the public were talking about building the building. I don't actually think the building is being constructed, but for a number of reasons that, again, I'm not fully aware of, Lehigh has not been able to open that building on time. The reason I am not fully aware of those details is because that part of the contract is not held by the authority. And so it's not something that I'm privy to. However, what we are doing to attempt to move around that is engaging a number of different housing providers to investigate broad master leasing arrangements that might accelerate our ability to have units that come online that are extant, that we can move people into rapidly. That essentially borrows from the methodology that we've deployed inside Partnership for Zero that has been quite effective. My anticipation is that we initiated those discussions last week, and my expectation is that we should know really by the end of this week what the feasibility is with the housing folks that we are talking to, and then the timeline to engaging.
So I understand from the plan that there is an estimate that there are 22% of the emergency shelter beds, and these would be shelters, not permanent housing, but 22% are going unused. Am I correct in that?
You are correct.
And that's an official number from the city of Seattle or some
That analysis comes from KCRHA looking across the shelter portfolio that we fund directly. There's some, like if you want the entire county, I will note that there's some shelters that are not included in that analysis, some of which report higher utilization rates, particularly those on the east side, and that's another likely technical revision that you'll see in the next draft of the plan. But for all intents and purposes, yes.
But KCRHA cannot use those shelter beds to move people from these camps that we're focused on for DOT into that type of housing. And that is due to the budget proviso that was passed by the legislature.
Yeah, the budget proviso is very specific that you have to be able to offer someone housing.
Well, anyway, so really at this point, it has to be housing constructed or leased before we're able to use that money to move people out of that camp.
Yeah, we need either an emergency housing or permanent housing option that we can provide. And that is I'm sorry, words. That's the system level breakdown here in terms of the availability of units. The other thing that I'll say, sorry, is so because we do have those 80 units of emergency housing and those drove some of our prior resolutions, I've also instructed staff to increase cash assistance availability to support people in those units moving on to market rate housing if that is a path that they can activate.
And would a THV be considered housing that would be available if more could be placed?
I would have to look into that. The authority does have money to stand up either new THV or non-congregate shelter, depending on who bids and what the bids are. But that's procurement. And so that's not going to meet the, sort of speed questions that have been raised today.
Well, it doesn't, with the questions that have been raised today and the answers and both the restrictions, it doesn't seem that speed is an option. And I think it should be.
I would agree.
We need to get, I think everybody on this board would agree. So I don't know what there is as a way to get around this. The legislature is still meeting. And if that is what needs to be done to make sure there's a clarification, I think we should do that.
I will say that my perspective, and I think the perspective of the provider teams, is that the fastest way to move folks is to be able to offer them, again, something that is housing, whether it's emergency housing or permanent housing. That's the thing that gets the job done. And so that's where, myself and the leadership team have directed our available resources to quickly try to activate.
Okay, well, I would agree with some of the speakers today who said, don't take options off the table. We need all options on the table. And I'll just leave it at that. Simha, I'm sorry for hogging the discussion here.
Oh, I'm grateful. This is the point, right? For us to have a discussion. I did have a question, sort of point of clarification. It sounds, I haven't read the right-of-way contract in detail, but even if we can't use those particular monies for the movement of people, we can still, our outreach workers are still able to offer the temporary housing options that are available to the community, right? Like the various emergency shelters, et cetera, that are broadly available to the community. So if we can find something that people are willing to accept, we can refer them there.
Those offers are already made.
Okay.
So if we are aware of something, we do offer it.
Okay.
There are, I mean, like, you know, like the goal, right, is always to get people into housing. With any space where we are operating, we, you know, particularly if we have broader either so there's a designation the authority uses for some of our encampments called a hazard designation, which a number of the sites that are under discussion today fall into for various reasons. And hazard designations by nature of what they are, you know, call for speedy resolution and the deployment of anything that is available. So anything that we know about that we can equip providers with as an offer, they're going to offer. That's a default posture.
Gotcha. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't taking things off the table. We're offering that, and then it's just the right of way money has to be used for permanent. Or okay, thank you.
Right.
I see Gordon stand up.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to be quick because my thoughts are not fully formed. My reaction, personally, Gordon's, is that this conversation of the last, I don't know, 10 minutes, sparked in part by public testimony and by Mark's CEO update. I think this is probably one of the most important conversations that I've had as a member of the implementation board, both in terms of substance and the incredible complexity that is in front of us, or that we're in the middle of. And I'm speaking beyond the fact that we're talking about human beings, but the complexity of what resources are available, when are they available, the type of money, the constraints, how do you humanely go to where people are, and then be responsible in offering them a pathway that they can understand and support, being mindful of all those constraints. And then I think the other part that's striking at me today is that appropriately there's interest, emotion, frustration around some of the negativity associated with homeless folks who are under oppression and abuse, or in need of services and not receiving those services that they want and need. And the opportunity for us to perhaps, and this is on us, not just on Mark and the staff, be more effective at communicating. I think that my experience here and in prior capacities is that a lot of us want to see simple solutions to very complex and challenging situations. And it doesn't usually happen for a lot of reasons. And I think that's a challenge for us, is how do we, in a non-defensive way, a transparent way, in a way that's aligned with aspects of our 5-year plan, communicate to those who have interest and who are as close to this work as the IB is, or certainly as the staff. And so we are responsive to the public. Our first obligation, of course, is to those who are homeless and in danger of becoming homeless. But I think this shows that there is an opportunity and a need for us and others involved in this to increase our attention, perhaps, on how we communicating what's going on, why is it going on, and what are the steps the many steps that are underway to address near-term opportunities as well as a long-term goal. So, thanks for listening.
I appreciate that. And can I just say that one of the things that I think, speaking personally, I think that there is a moment in front of us that does call for us to meet complexity with complexity. It is, like an old policy joke that I heard once upon a time is like, most of our simpler problems are done, right? Like, we learned how to put sewage underground, we know how to plumb, right? And what remains is actually quite difficult. And so I believe fundamentally that it's doable. I think the whole team here believes that it's doable. But it does require that we meet the complexity with the complexity, and that we don't try to make a thing that is complex fit into a simple answer. And I heard from the public today something that was concerning to me, because it isn't my personal impression or the impression of our team. And so I do want to work out how, like, something is happening, right? I heard and I saw in the chat, like, oh, everyone's pointing fingers, but I actually don't experience that. And I don't think our team experiences that. I think we have done tremendous work learning to work together as agencies who don't normally work together. Like, the Department of Transportation does not normally work with homeless service providers. Like, that isn't a normal operating action. And there has been incredible partnership, also incredible partnership with the Washington State Patrol, incredible partnership with the Department of Commerce. And what I think is that even as we take strides in those partnerships, the complexity we are marshaling as partners is still not sufficient for the complexity of what is in front of us. And so that's a rejoinder on us as the folks who are policy staff in those agencies to do better in that regard. And I take that very seriously. But I do want to lift up that I don't think that there is a movement of blame, but rather there is a migration towards a collective responsibility and an understanding at the core of that responsibility that housing is the thing that will fix this. And that, in the words of, I think, it was when Governor Inslee came to visit one of our programs, he lifted up that, like, the thing that we are trying to articulate through these solutions, that the solutions themselves are durable, that, like, it is not just that someone is moved from one place to another or moved into some place, but then they leave that place 2 days later, but that the people that have been placed through the right-of-way work are folks who I can tell you that they're still there. The people who have been placed through Partnership for Zero, I can tell you that they're still there. And it's that durability that I believe that our community is in pursuit of, and it is complex to create.
Thank you, Mark, and to the board. Other questions, comments before we transition? We have about 25 minutes left to Mark. Does it make sense to have Alexis? Pastor Anderson.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say, with all the exemplary work, Mark, that you and your staff are doing, how we communicate our successes, I think, is very, very important. And even with all of our communication of successes, I think when we come out in front with some of the areas that need to be addressed, if we address them while we're touting our successes and our exemplary work, to say that we still have work to do in this area with this situation, with that can kind of subdue or mitigate some of the public comments about what we're not doing and what needs to be done, because you've already outed it. You've already said it first. And it kind of takes away some of the power of people saying what we're not doing, because I believe that we're doing a great work. We have a lot of work to do, but when we can address those areas that are still unmet in what we're doing, that will, I think it can help us.
Thank you, Pastor. And heard, and I agree. I think it's a fine line. I think, I do want to make sure that the team here gets an opportunity. And again, thank you to Member Moritz for, his kind words. I do want them to get the appropriate credit for really difficult work that they're doing. And I think we all know that, and I think the mayor of Seattle has said recently, and there's no daylight between us, that, like, I don't think anyone is happy with where we are as a community. Like, that would be a difficult statement to make, right? And so progress cannot take the place of, again, the completeness of the task. And I think that is the difficulty about communicating right now. And again, I think the call in front of us is to figure out a way to complete the task. Chair, I think I would make the suggestion, and Alexis, with your permission, that we move to Owen, given that his presentation was moved. And if you're all right, what I'd like to do, Alexis, is post your materials, because I think they are very informational, and I would encourage the public to engage with them, so that you get a sense of, so that me speaking to the public, so that you all get a sense of how the subcommittee that's going to manage the work of the 5-year plan will be staffed, and the timeline on which that work will take place, so that folks can show up to those meetings and continue to provide the important and thoughtful feedback that we do want to solicit. Chair, is that okay with you?
That's fine with me. Yeah, if we can get that material both posted and sent directly to the board members, I think that'd be fantastic.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alexa. And thank you all.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. So switching topics a little bit, just give me a moment to pull up my presentation. Switching topics a little bit, can someone just confirm with a thumbs up that they can see the measuring unsheltered homelessness all screen? Excellent. So today, thanks for having me back after I was not feeling well at the last meeting. But here to talk about some of the ways that we can measure and how we are intending to measure unsheltered homelessness at the KCRHA. Today, going to talk a little bit about how grounding that within the goals of the 5-year plan. Talk a little bit about some of the modeling that has happened in our region, both things that are in the 5-year plan and things that have led to it, and how we're understanding the full scale of the issue. We'll talk again about some of our current measurements, and then I'm excited to show a little bit directly on where folks can find some of this information directly on our website and data that we are currently publishing there, and move towards talking about some of the mechanisms to scale countywide by name list, which is our way to get full understanding of sheltered and unsheltered homelessness across the region. So just want to keep us grounded in, again, in the 5-year plan. Goal number 1 is to dramatically reduce unsheltered homelessness. In order to do this, we obviously need to understand the scale and scope of unsheltered homelessness in our region and being able to measure against that. It's really important in this work that we maintain a line of sight into what we can offer folks and what folks need. That is something that the system has lacked over time, and something that the RHA has been talking about since we have come online in order to position ourselves for this, so that we can better understand as we are expanding sheltering and temporary housing to meet the need, and housing services, and looking again to one of our marquee items here, which is around partnership with Zero and the emergency management response in order to get towards functional zero countywide. All of these require us to have significant measurement abilities across different parts of our system. And it's important for us in this to really focus on what is the true scale of this issue. And I will regularly be bringing this number up when I appear in front of you all, which is that based off of our planning work in the 5-year plan, we're finding that we are estimating that about 62,000 people will experience homelessness at some point in 2027. So that's at the end of this period. And that is the number that we are indexing against. It's really important, as Mark regularly says, and other people from our organization, that we are grounding our work in the truth of the magnitude of homelessness in our region. That is the only way we can hope to solve this whole problem. Many of these 62,000 people will experience unsheltered homelessness. Not all of them, but many of them will. These data, just to give a brief reminder for folks, are based on administrative data of people living in King County. That administrative data, though, is something that is looked at after the fact, as many different systems are collated together. And one of the things that the RHA needs to do is get better at having, again, that clear line of sight into how many people are experiencing homelessness, and specifically unsheltered homelessness in King County at any given time. And my job today is to walk you through a little bit about how we are getting towards that important effort. Okay, so I think you all have seen this before, this King County integrated data. The reason I'm bringing this up is this is not our solution to the unsheltered problem, but I do want to let you all know a little bit about how different iterations of this work have led to getting better at the unsheltered homelessness component. As a reminder for folks, whether you've seen this or not, this was a really impressive report that came from colleagues at KCRHA. Their performance management and evaluation team has been working for years in order to stand up an integrated data hub that links administrative data sources across a number of different systems. And this report, which was released in 2021, was a new floor that the RHA was indexing our response against. So if you remember back to, I think it was maybe November of 2021, I may have been in front of you all talking about this, showing a number of different charts. And we are coming out to say that our new floor that we are indexing our response against is actually 40,000 people experiencing homelessness in a given year in King County. And I want to emphasize that word floor, as we just went from a slide that had 62,000 to 40,000. We knew when we were going into this that that number would grow as we looked at different data sources and got a better understanding of this problem. And it's important for me to share this because we have a wealth of data available, both at the state level, which is where that 62,000 figure was coming from for figuring out data sources that they have about King County, and at the local level. We have a significant amount of information here within King County that we have access to, we and our partners, I should say. And it's important to show that we also have a significant amount of good information in our HMIS. I know we constantly, as a system, are talking about what can be done better, how we need to improve, ways that we need to increase our data quality. But I just want to really lift up that our HMIS is one of the best in the nation. We have some of the best data quality across the entire country in our HMIS, and the RHA is committed to doing better. Oh, I'm not switching slides on the wrong thing. Speaking of data in our HMIS, here's some data from our HMIS that lives on our website. This is a really interesting graph that, again, our colleagues at Performance Measurement and Evaluation at King County KCRHA have put together and handed over to us to maintain, that shows the number of people that are served at any individual month in our HMIS system. So a quick orientation to this is we have apologies, I am colorblind, so I'm going to get at least one of these colors wrong. But the big orange one at the bottom is showing the number of people on a single day in HMIS on a particular month are sheltered. We know those people are sheltered in HMIS. We have the color above that, which I think is a type of gray, probably not, but that color is unsheltered. So that is showing you that we actually can see, just with our HMIS data, a significant number of people touching our system that are unsheltered. So we are getting line of sight into this. And then the line above that is unknown. So people who are touching our system that we're not totally sure whether they are sheltered or unsheltered. We'll dig into this a little bit more in a moment and more of a live demo, because I do want to show you all where to find this on our website. But I do just want to lift up again that we have significant amount of information at our fingertips just through the HMIS, which is a system that we now administer. Okay, connecting this to Partnership for Zero. One of the things that we've been talking about since the beginning, and I think you all have heard, is that we want to scale a solution that we call a by name list. So by name lists are, as many of you know, and many folks in the public were alluding to in some individual encampment resolutions, are something that we often have in our region about specific encampments that we're working towards resolving. The RHA wants to grow on that and instead look at how can we scale a by name list across the entirety of King County in order to better show that, or in order to have better line of sight into everybody's experience with homelessness, what they need and how we are putting them on a path towards success. We're currently piloting that downtown in our Partnership for Zero work. So we're showing how we can go beyond an individual encampment into a larger zone that has a significant number of people in order to maintain line of sight and access to information about those folks. Here's a snapshot about engagement. This was taken a few weeks ago. This number has changed some, but this is representative of our by name list that we have for our system advocate workforce downtown in our Partnership for Zero work, where you can see that we have 917 people who we have engaged with in that space who are active on our by name list. A thing that is maybe a little less apparent here that I'll call out is this kind of bright green area. Again, I think it's bright green, it might be a different color, but the bright green area that says 26% under the percent of essay assessment referrals that were new to HMIS clients. What's exciting about this is that we are actually seeing that a significant number of people, when we are deploying in the way that the essays are giving us information or getting connected to the system in a way that they never have before. So that means that of the 917 people we've engaged with, 26% of them have not previously had a record in HMIS. This is huge because there's two ways that somebody could not have a record in HMIS. One, it could mean that they never touched the system. They have not received services and it has not been logged. And the other is maybe they did touch the system, but are anonymous in the way that they're doing so, because that is an option that people can have here. So regardless of which of those two is true for all of those 26%, this is helping us get again back to that concept of a line of sight into people experiencing unsheltered homelessness. This is what I'm also excited about with this is as we, it's a little bit of an aside and my apologies for that. As we're scaling Partnership for Zero and gaining momentum with partnerships with other outreach workers in that area, this list will grow to be beyond just the list of folks that system advocates are touching, our direct folks on the ground, and also start to include outreach that other folks are doing in that area as well. How is this important to our understanding of unsheltered homelessness though? I want to take you into our website and just show you how you navigate to this guy, and then talk a little bit about something that's really important on here that may be missed. So on our website, just want to be really clear to folks and happy for any board members who want to walk through the data artifacts that are on here. We have a significant amount of data at your fingertips about our system. It's under the data tab. If you want to look at the household served, which is what we're going to talk about today, go to household served, it loads, and we come down here. The reason I want to lift this up today is because the system advocate workforce launched into the field in late August and into September. And that was the time that we were really working towards creating a full census of the number of people experiencing homelessness downtown. And what's exciting about this is it shows here, and this is starting to get a little bit nerdy on some of this, but it shows here that previous to our work of being downtown, we had a fairly stable number of people that we knew were unsheltered in our system. And then when we started to deploy this work, the Partnership for Zero work that we want to scale across the system in the same way we want to scale by name list work, we start to see more people experiencing unsheltered homelessness month over month that we are able to see. This, to folks who may not be living and breathing these data, maybe like a little concerning to see that we're seeing an increase in the number of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness. But I want to remind folks that this is indicative of the number of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness that our system has contact with. So often those who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness do not have contact with their system. And so we do not have access to information of what the scale of that particular problem is at a given moment. And this, I'm really excited about this, but this is early evidence that our approach to Partnership for Zero and getting more folks in the field actually helps us to better understand the scale and needs of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness.
Yeah, I'm actually still on the call with them right now with the board.
Hey, Chris.
We can pick up.
I think you're unmuted.
Perfect. Sweet. So just want to give you that live access to that information. We'll show, like, there's a lot more information on here. Like I said, board members, if you ever want to meet one-on-one to talk data nerdness and the stuff that is on our website, I'm more than happy to do so. I'm actually very proud of the work that is available to folks publicly. Okay, getting back into the slideshow. Okay.
Sima, sorry, I just want to check on time. Will we have time for some questions, or are we going to extend?
Owen, do you think we'll be able to? I'd love to be sure we have some time for questions.
I have 2 more slides to get through and then can open up for some questions.
Appreciate it.
So just coming back to that goal number 1 of dramatically reducing unsheltered homelessness. Again, if we're seeing this vehicle, that Partnership for Zero is really helping us to get a better understanding by having more folks in the field directly interacting with people. As we scale both that effort and our by name list effort from just downtown to countywide, we'll continue to get a better understanding of this to maintain direct line of sight into this work. And just want to recap a couple of the ideas we've talked about real quick, which is that we are looking at starting with HMIS. Again, our HMIS is one of the best in the country. We have a significant amount of information in there that we're able to pull from and look from regularly. And we can start to build upon the approaches that the team has used, looking at those individual days to other approaches. We can also scale initiatives like Partnership for Zero, right-of-way work, all of which include those by name list approaches. And then one of the things that my team is really tasked with here is how do we scale the technical and reporting infrastructure to ensure that as we deploy these additional resources, we're getting our hands more and more around the problem as we move forward so that we can finalize a number of how many people are experiencing unsheltered homelessness and be measuring against that. And with that, open to your questions.
Thank you, Owen. Questions from the board?
I'm sorry, I don't have my buttons for the hand. Is it okay if I
go for it, Ben?
Hand? So Owen, thank you so much. I mean, there's so many numbers here. So let me just ask like some really simple questions. How many people you estimate are homeless in King County right now? And how many unsheltered homeless in King County right now? And how many do you estimate are go through an unsheltered episode in a given year?
Yeah, right now with our modeling, and I don't have the baseline modeling in front of me, which I apologize, but we're modeling that about 53,000 people right now are experience homelessness this year. And we are estimating that around 23,000 to 24,000 of those experience unsheltered homelessness.
In a given year, right? At some point?
Correct.
And do you have an estimate of how many people are unsheltered now? I'm anchored on the PIC count numbers, which I know have some methodological issues with them. And I think that was around 7,000 or so unsheltered. Is there an updated version of that estimate, or is that not included in the data sets that you're sharing?
That's not directly included in the data sets that we're sharing, but we do know that, like, again, scaling towards the number of people who need support services to move from being unsheltered to shelter, we need to be planning for about 23,000 people this year.
23,000 in a given year, right?
Correct.
But at a given point in time, many of those people don't remain unsheltered for the entire year. So the number that are unsheltered at a given point in time is it safe to say that it's greater than 7,000, which is the PIC count number, and it's less than 24,000, which is the estimate of how many people experience unsheltered homelessness in a year, like somewhere in between those ranges?
I can say with confidence it is greater than that 7,000, and more, I can say with less confidence that it's a little bit under that 23,000 because of the way that we did our modeling looking across the entirety of the year in order to index those. What I will say with this, and then Mark, I do see your hand, is that much of what we are looking at in this modeling and looking at the length of time that people are staying in our temporary options, there's a significant amount of, because there are not options on the other end to move people through temporary options and shelter into permanent housing, there was significant length of stay and throughput issues. So many of those folks are not getting that ability to come inside throughout the year. And Mark.
Mark, do you want to go? I just have one last question in this to help on my understanding. It's a quick one.
Yeah, just briefly, Owen's point is really essential, and I want to make sure that the board and the public explain it, that like much of the modeling that has been done and why I've indicated that it's dynamic in its nature is that it hinges on accurate understanding of what the lengths of stay are in the system, which is contingent on the availability of permanent housing options, right? And so much of, like, in many instances, there are program improvements that can be made to reduce lengths of stay, but currently the best performing programs still have an average length of stay that's about a year. So the modeling then that comes off that indicates that you have to be able to provide some form of long-term emergency housing option for people for roughly a year before something that is in the permanent housing space is going to become available for them, you know, based on what their needs are. To the extent that we saw a shift in the, you know, rates of affordable housing development or the rates of permanent supportive housing development, the modeling then shifts accordingly, right? And so I think it's just really critical to be clear that, like, for every new unit that comes online, and to the extent that the production of housing in that space is accelerated, the need for these temporary options, like, correspondingly declines.
Okay, I think I followed that. I'll let others ask questions on that. My question about the numbers here are, you know, firstly related to the unsheltered amount, which I think we agree is greater than 7,000 and perhaps as high as 24,000. But it really depends on how long people stay unsheltered. So if 24,000 become unsheltered in a given year and they're all unsheltered for a year, then that would assume there's about 24,000 at any point in time, but we don't really know due to the nature of that. Then there's the other half of the people who experience homelessness who don't become unsheltered, which is the 50 to 60,000 less 24,000. And I just want to understand that group a little bit better. So those who are accessing homelessness services but don't become unsheltered, are those people going directly from a house situation into a shelter? Or does that include the group that is housed but perhaps unstably housed and needs a little bit of help to stay housed, like a diversion program, rental assistance, things like that? Like, I just want to understand a bit more about those two groups, the unsheltered group and then those that are in our data but are not unsheltered at any point in time in the year.
Yeah, Mark, do you want to take that one? And I have an answer as well.
Yeah, I think your answer is probably the same as mine. I'm trying to shorten the answer because we're at time on the meeting. That's functionally a result of, like, different policy definitions of what it means to experience homelessness, right? And so that's a much longer conversation than I think we can accomplish in 30 seconds. And I'm happy to have policy staff brief board members. I see board member McHenry nodding along. I know that he's been in this world for a long time. But functionally speaking, there are forms of homelessness beyond unsheltered, doubled up, you know, fleeing intimate partner violence. Like, there's a whole host of, like, homeless situations that are recognized in federal policy and that we are charged with responding to as the continuum of care, but do not have unsheltered designations. I'll add, though, because I think this is the core of your question, is that those folks are not simply moving into some shelter. Like, that is not the vast majority of those situations. They are falling into other policy designations definitionally.
Okay, sounds like there's more education to be done for all of us. I look forward to it. Thank you for the Owen for the presentation and Mark for the clarifications.
Board, we are at time. So was there one last question from anyone? Okay. So just to wrap up, thank you, public, for your comments, to the staff for your presentations, to the board for the robust discussion. Board members, keep in mind you got a little bit of homework, talking to Sean if you are interested, and hopefully you are, in the strategic planning committee. We've got some prep work for March. And, you know, I'll just say, I'll take one last second. Pastor Anderson talked about talking about successes and also talking about, areas for improvement. And I'll say my favorite moments in this position, and having had a chance to have some additional conversation with Mark and their staff, have been when they've talked about failure. When they have said like, hey, this is what we are struggling with, and this is what we learned from it, and this is what we're going to do differently. Like rent partition for zero, et cetera. Like here is where we change. And I think communicating the lessons we're learning along the way, it's really important. Anyway, this is my last 2 cents. Thank you everyone for your attention today, and we'll see you at the March 8th meeting at 2 p.m. Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.